welcome back. Now, here's what we want you to consider tonight. So the Youth and Sports Minister Syed Saddiq has called for a policy that guarantees youth appointments for top posts in GLCs. Now, this is him suggesting a quota similar to that reserved for women. He wants more youth inclusion in decision-making at the governmental level because he says there is a notable absence of youths holding senior positions in GLCs. Sharaad, what do you make of this?
Well, okay, let's put it this way, Melissa. I think Syed Saddiq's concerns start with attacking the premise that young people are not ready to make decisions and then, they're not mature enough and so on and so forth. And I think on that score, I would give it to him. That, in fact, young people, as much as older people, can make good or bad decisions about policy and so on and so forth. The question is, why GLCs and why a quota? And whether we open up the possibility for, again, the giving of, gifts to people associated with us and so on and so on. So it's not so much having a quota, who's going to fill that quota is something that I would be very concerned about.
So quotas are, I guess I would say, sometimes necessary to ensure equal access to opportunities, right? And I would say if he wanted to make a comparison with a quota for women, the 30% quota for board members and women, then you would have to first ask the question, women in Malaysia are undeniably a marginalized majority. We know that. There are research and studies that have shown about the gender gap within the workplace. However, can we say the same about youths? Are youths a marginalized majority? Could you answer that question?
Well, look, I'm not entirely sure if youth are a category, but often when it comes to GLCs and any corporate entity, the question of whether you have the requisite experience, if you have some contribution to the conversation that's necessary to drive this growth strategy or any other strategy within that entity, I think is what is crucial. So the idea of pushing youth there because the principle that diversity at a board level is actually good for an organization.
It is.
Is there well established as a principle, as kind of taken for granted kind of idea today in the 21st century. The issue is that why just youth? Why just women? If you're going to take the diversity principle forward, there are many things and many communities that are in fact marginalized and excluded. So let's talk about people from Sabah and Sarawak. Are they on GLCs and represented sufficiently? What about all the non-Malay, non-Bumiputra, non-Muslim individuals within GLCs? Are they adequately represented?
Right.
So why stop the diversity principle at youth?
Okay.
And again, who's going to be this youth-led delegation? Who's going to make the decisions? Is it going to be the minister himself?
No, well, I think that's up to the boards, right? So having a quota for GLC, and I'm just paraphrasing from what I've read in the news, that this proposal or this, the suggestion to have youths as part of, decision-making positions in GLCs, I wonder where he's coming from. And I'm trying to think about, the argument here. Many boards of directors are of a certain generation, and businesses nowadays have to deal with disruption and change very quickly, and I'm wondering perhaps having a youth perspective on the board may be a good thing. Now I'm going to put this to you. There are younger CEOs. I mean, if you look at big tech in America, the average age of a CEO of big tech is 47 years old. Now that's young, that's dynamic, and the board should be reflecting the same dynamics of a company.
Well, okay, and maybe GLCs suffer from the idea that many of the people on the board are there because it's a sinecure, it's a reward for loyalty to the government of the day, or et cetera, right? So the question is, how do you make those boards actually work for the public good? Now, like women, the youth category isn't undifferentiated. We're people who are young, who have different value systems, different ideologies, different outlooks on life, different takes on the question of the gig economy, all these things that you're talking about,
right.
The great disruptors in the business world today. So it isn't simply a question of getting somebody who is younger than 45 or younger than 35. I don't know what the category is now for youth. But the point would be, what exactly is the substance of that youth in that position? And I worry that, again, we go back to quotas to drive any kind of discussion, and quotas often mean somebody is in the role of making those decisions, and they're going to get political rewards for doing so.
Well, okay, quotas are only problematic if the implementation is superficial, if it's self-serving, if it allows for the breeding of nepotism and cronyism, and that's where I think the issue we have with quotas. But quotas as a temporary measure to correct an imbalance in opportunity, I think is necessary, especially if you want to make sure that the playing field is level for those who have been historically marginalized.
Right. So let's take the example of women. And I think in the case of women, quotas really do help, because the male privilege is a real hard nut to crack. And I say that as an older male, you know, but because from a marginal community, that older men don't want to give up their privilege, right? So to crack that nut, especially because women represent a half of the population.
Yes.
And it wouldn't be the same if you're talking about ethnic quotas, if you're talking about regional quotas. Much harder to kind of decipher how that would work out, right? But the important thing is women, because they're half the population, you don't have to talk about a dearth of talent and so on. So women are perhaps more talented than men. So the issue really is with the youth quota, what is it that we're talking about? What is this youth that Syed Saddiq wants to promote?
Can I just say, I think it's, I'm speculating here, but I think it's the perspective of the youth, perhaps a change in the way we've done things for so long.
But is there one perspective? I mean, you can count any number of young people who do not think like Syed Saddiq, all right, and who don't have the same approach to social media or to politics.
Agreed.
Or his ideas about the economy. There are different types of young people. So I'm not sure who these young people that he wants to promote or see there in GLCs. Maybe if he could be more precise about their outlook and their values. Youth itself isn't a descriptor for values.
Well,
it's purely a placeholder. It's a large category.
It's not a monolithic block, right? And I don't think he speaks for all youth, if I may say. Well, we'll have to wait to hear from the Minister for more clarification on this suggestion. But for tonight, that's all we have for Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. With me, Sharaad. Kuttan. We'll be back with you same time tomorrow for another episode. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.